Hello and welcome back to You Up for More. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I'm Jared Freed. It is so good to be back here with you, Jordana. We are here recapping episodes
7 through 9.
7 through 9 of Love is Blind. If you have not watched it, go watch it and then come back here, hit subscribe, do all, like it, all those things.
And if you haven't listened, we have the episodes 1 through 6 up, 2 different episodes on YouTube, or if you're a subscriber, you can listen to them on the podcast.
They're there. We're going to go through. So the way we're going to recap these next 3 episodes, we're going to go through each of the couples, right?
Because they don't really have much interaction together, so we can separate them.
We're basically in the get to know you, here's my life phase of this show. This is like, you're going to see how I live.
Where it gets real.
It gets real, and it's the part of the show that I think makes it better than most dating shows, is like...
They give them their phones back.
Phones getting back. Here's my parents. Here's the parents that are not in on it. Here's the parents who are excited. It's just like, this is when this show you go, oh, whoa.
It's when things really start to like heat up.
Do you know, I have this theory that the parts of Love is Blind you hate the most is where you are in dating.
Okay.
So like if you're like on the apps and you're single, you just can't stand the pods.
Really? I can't stand the pods either, though.
Okay. I was like, I'm most hurt by the pods.
Right.
Like I'm like, I hear them talk and I'm irritated.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I get to this part, I'm like less irritated. I'm more like interested.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand that if someone's like trying to get to meet someone's parents or seeing how someone lives, or that they would just be like irritated with the answers they'd hear from someone that they're dating.
Totally get that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, these 7 through 9 episodes really make me think that I am like delusional about like which couples I should be rooting for. I was like, did I have horrible judgment in men when I was dating? Because every couple that I thought was great is now turned completely on, like upside down. And now the people that I used to root for, I hate, and the people that I used to hate, I'm kind of into now. It really like switched up, I
made a TikTok about this last year because I said like you can tell where someone is based on Love is Blind based on how they talk about people. It's like, oh, you think Steven is like this cute, bubbly,
That's
awesome
literally what
guy?
I said last week.
It's like, oh, you must be in the pods, girl. And it's so true because now, Steven is, it's almost like,
public enemy number 1.
Well, we're taping this before it comes out, and I'm wondering, this guy might be...
let's start with them, right?
Should we start with Steven and Monica?
Let's start with Steven and Monica, because there's the one that's very clearly out after this. So let's start with the last time we'll speak of them, I guess, in this until the reunion.
Never to be heard from again.
Yes.
We'll see him at the reunion, we hope.
Right.
Because Steven... Okay, so... Monica brings up how she's pissed that Steven said he would bring her flowers in the pods and never did. So the flowers thing becomes like a representation of like what they're going through.
Being all talk.
Right. Yeah. Is he all talk or is he action?
And I started this episode thinking she was being a little annoying.
A little? She was tough to deal with.
And I was like, I started off very much on his side where she's like, listen, he's like, he's like, yeah, you totally deserve a Kate Spade bag. And she's like, Kate Spade? Right. Are you joking? Like, gross.
She seemed to have no empathy for, like, that he's from another world from her, a little bit doofy, a little bit just, like, bro-tastic.
Not fully in her, like, socioeconomic status league. What she kept saying was totally fine with her. She kept saying, like, she didn't care about. But, like, this episode, when you get into the real world, you suddenly find out the things that you said you didn't care about, actually you do kind of care about.
Right. And you can see like, there's like elements of like, I can, this is a horrible thing to say, but like sometimes, especially when we're watching a show like this and you're seeing like the real life and who they are. Oh, I'm starting to understand why you're single. Like, I think if someone watched a show, or I guess they listen to a podcast with me, they could, if someone listens to every episode of our podcast, they could go, I know why Jared's single. This guy's like...
Well, you're getting more and more context the more content of someone you consume.
Right. And I'm watching Monica, and the whole time I'm going, yeah, this person seems like they have like a very specific view of how life should be, how her life should be, how it should go down. And I'm like, I could see that, like, you're probably dealing with a lot of relationships where it's like square peg, round hole.
Yeah.
And like, so like she becomes like unlikable.
Because it seems, especially in the beginning of these episodes, that he is kind of afraid of her. And I understand why he's afraid of her, because she's very much like, She kind of keeps like insulting him, but saying "I love you." She keeps saying like,
she's mean to him.
yeah, she's kind of mean to him. She's like, "I love you," but like,
Right.
like I
You're
love you, but
embarrassing me.
like okay, like I love you, but like I'm gonna get up now. Like you're great, but it seems like she doesn't really like him. She's
Right.
starting to not really like him.
And I kept like
It ki-
being as it went on, I was like, why is he so spineless? That's what I kept wondering.
Well, it seemed like he felt very lucky to be with her. It felt like he
Right.
was like, oh, I'm not going to fuck this up by like not just saying yes to whatever she wants or going with whatever she's saying. I don't want to like screw this up. It felt like at the time.
Right.
But then there were little signs that were starting to come out that were these red flags for me watching at home, where it was starting to get a little sexual in like times that it didn't really feel like it was necessary to bring sex into it.
That was the thing. I was like, is he, we're like detectives watching this, because I'm like, so at the end of Cabo, he's bringing up like how we're going to get DMs and women are just going to like want to suck our dicks for being on this show. And you're like, listen,
He doesn't know his audience. He's like saying that to, what's her name?
it's Monica and Taylor.
He's saying that to Taylor. And I'm kind of like, does she seem like she's like interested in this conversation? Like he doesn't, I understand. I was kind of like, this guy seems, I understand why she kind of tells him to stop talking. Cause he
Right.
kind of like talks himself into, like he talks so much that he eventually says something weird or like annoying or
Totally.
gross.
And
I'm like, but I could see why she's like, just say less.
even me, a straight guy who says crazy shit on the internet every day, I was like, this is like not comfortable. Like I was like,
Yeah.
and
Where he was saying like, oh, like, yeah, sometimes, you got to get them flowers so that they will have sex with you. I'm like, why don't you just not say that?
right,
Why don't
it's
you
not
just like think that and not say it?
also, that's not how like an adult, mature man thinks. Like
Right.
I do understand that's like a thing. He thinks he's saying something that like, right, dudes. I'd be like, well, I guess not. Well, I don't know. I'm like 39. I don't really think that way as much. Like I do understand, like you do something for your partner because you want to and you love them.
It seemed very transactional.
Right. It just
Yeah.
was like the way he looks at sex became more and more apparent. And it went from me being like, oh, he's in awe of her and he feels lucky to have her, to this is an addict
Yeah.
who is afraid he's going to be revealed.
Right. Or he's afraid he's an addict who's afraid he's going to lose his fix. Right. That's why he's so like, yeah, of course. Like, I'll be quiet. Like,
Right.
whatever you want. Not because he likes her so much. At first I was like, it's because he likes her so
Right.
much.
I
And now
thought
I'm
the
like,
same way as you. Yeah.
Now I'm like, oh, it's because he needs to have sex and he's afraid she's going to like withhold that from him as an addict would.
And they start saying, they do even reveal little by little, like she's like, I'm not having sex right now. They talk about that.
Right.
And he's like, no, I get it. Like, and it's like, it's just like, when you talk to, it was like the 40-year-old virgin when they realize he's a virgin, and he's like, oh, I love boobies, fun bags.
Two
and
bags of sand.
Yeah, 2 bags of sand. Right. And you're like, wait a minute, you're a virgin. Like, that's kind of how the progression of Steven and Monica would happen. Like,
right.
Because I think I got more and more annoyed with Monica because I'm like, Steven, say to this person, you're being a fucking asshole. Like, how can you treat me in public like that? Like,
stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself. Like, dude, like, what is going on here? Like, and then we have this reveal, and I don't know what the editing process here is or what Love Is Blind is doing.
Did he say anything? Is kind of what I want to know. When they were having that conversation and she was getting annoyed and I was getting annoyed on her behalf.
When was this?
When she confronts him about the text.
Well, why do we join every fight after it's happened?
I know. Why can't we see the fight? Last time with Jimmy and Megan Fox,
right?
We got at least we got to watch her freak out on him like in real time. This is we're only getting. She saw the text somehow. It doesn't say how she saw the text. She saw a text of him, saying very sexual things to a woman.
So apparently he goes for a sleep study, which is like the craziest thing. Like I don't understand that.
Isn't he
like
busy filming the show?
Right. What made you go get your sleep
test?
test? And it's like to see what type of sleeper you are. Like it's just such a weird thing for a guy who's out of a job and works in contracting.
Oh, that's
to be
another
like,
thing. He got fired.
He got fired, but he's like, this happens, and sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out. And listen, I just, it doesn't make sense. The idea that like this guy who's like, working with his hands is like, well, I gotta get my sleep tested to make sure that I
make it up for filming my
right.
regular.
It's just so weird. And she's like, you're texting with another woman, kinky things.
Sexual things.
Sexual, kinky things. And she never really says what it is, but the conversation they had when they went to this like flower making thing, which was like the dumbest date I've ever seen.
And
like,
he was like, I'm going to have so much sex after this.
And she's like, it's beautiful. And they're holding up like a grandmother's dream catcher.
But I get why she was, I don't even think it was about the flower making. I think she was like, okay, he's like following through.
Right.
And it feels good because she's already made this decision to like marry him, right? So she's like, okay, like now I can feel more calm about this decision because he's doing the things that he said he would do. And she's probably more excited that he's put in an effort to do this thing than she is even about the flowers.
Right. And well, then I guess she catches these texts and Taylor and Garrett are there for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why. They're like hiding in the closet.
Right. Garrett came out of nowhere. I was like, he's here? And
the hero came in to be the hero.
Apparently. And like Steven is there too. And he just looks like a different person after you find these things out. And it's like, I felt
so
bad
disappointed.
for him. I felt bad for him because I was like, I know
you felt bad for him?
Well,
oh
because
my God.
this guy,
I did not feel bad for him.
He seems to have a real issue with sex.
So say that. Like, to me, the most frustrating thing about that conversation, and this happens all the time. I think this happens on Love is Blind in all of the conversations where the men are confronted. It happened last season too with the guy with the phone location sharing shit.
Yep.
I forgot his name. Where the men are confronted and then they're just speechless. And I think this happens a lot of the time when you fight with a man, where he's just sitting there and he's like, and you kind of feel like you're talking to yourself. And she even says like, why do you keep saying that? Like, say something different. Say something different. Like you're like
he has no, but he knows he's wrong. Like there's nothing to say.
No, there is stuff to say. That's a conversation. Okay. He says, I'm sorry. Fine. Here's why I think I did this. Here's like, this is what I was thinking at the time.
Right.
This is what it feels like you're apologizing, but you're actually just taking the easy way out, because an apology with no like thought or like introspection or insight, to me, is just like for you to get out of there. Well, and you even see him as the cameras are on him, and he's like, well, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm going to give you your space. I'm sorry. I'm going to mosey on out of here. And he like wiggles his way out. And that's like not gratifying for the person who's been hurt, or that doesn't feel like you have any sort of
he had no
closure or anything.
And
men do. Can you explain why men do this?
I don't know if I can explain it, because that's in me too, where I'm like, I'm
gonna let you have your space.
Well, it's almost as if he realizes the cameras are there for the first time. When you
it almost seems like he looks at them.
He's looking at the camera. He's like doing Jim Halpert. Like I guess the jig is up, because it did feel like someone who got caught being the real version of himself, and now he has to answer to that. And a lot of guys, I think what you're asking for is for him to go like deep with his own emotion. Why are you doing this? And he's probably never even thought of that stuff. So like put it into words of like, why do I text kinky, weird shit with this woman who is in on it, obviously, who does the thing that I like to do? Like, I don't even think he has an answer to that. He's like, I've never done the therapy of like why I have these sexual proclivities. I mean, the way he talked about like butt stuff with her, like at the flower thing, you're like, we're at a flower store, sir. Like, he's talking about anal.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, you're really pushing for that. Like, you could tell she was like, what's this? Yeah, but then they kind of joke about it.
It's just funny he couldn't even wait until after filming to like get into that stuff. Like he had to do it on camera immediately. It was so weird.
It's weird, but that's why I come to like, I'm giving him a lot of like,
no mercy.
To
me, it's like, okay, I would give him...
seems addicted to something.
Sure.
Because the way it went down, it was like, and she couldn't even say the words. Like, whatever he's doing.
Because she was so grossed out.
Right. Yeah. Like, and it's like, and I'm sure he likes Monica, and he's like probably super embarrassed that like, she looks at him a different way now. Like, this is what you want. Like, you've been, and to her, she's like, probably like, this is what you were thinking about, like when with me. Like, there's a deception there, too, for her.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's many levels. It's like, one, I'm publicly embarrassed on national television.
Right.
That sucks. too, I'm like kind of delusional because I thought you were this great guy, and I don't trust my own picker.
Right, right, right.
And then like 3, like you're not giving me anything to work with here, so I just like kind of betrayal with absolutely no closure or sense of like why this is happening,
I
like
don't
why
think
what
he
I've
has.
done, what you've done,
I
like
don't think he has the thing to say other than like, I know I did bad. Like
right.
that was
Felt
like
like
the
she
whole.
was scolding like a little boy.
Yeah, he was very boyish, very like, and again, his look changed. It was like Seinfeld episode of the Two-Face. Like he
Right.
like looked like a different person. He went from this, oh my God, I'm in awe of this woman I got, to like, oh,
gonna
you were just
run.
afraid
Yeah.
of this woman finding out who you are.
Right.
And then he just runs. Like if he came to the reunion, I would be very surprised. It like,
Yeah, he seemed way like unable to face consequences.
right, in ways that he didn't know what those would mean.
Right.
Like the only consequences he faces is like, oh, I'll be better next time, because he knows that it's just like, oh, okay, I'll buy you the flowers.
Right.
You
And his
know?
only excuse was like, I was drunk, I don't remember, but then he was texting her the next day. It was just like a complete mess. He's not good. He's not a good liar. He's
No.
not I was annoyed because I can only imagine how she felt, because I was like, I was so into this guy and this couple last episode, and I was like, is there something wrong with me? And
Right.
she actually like was gonna marry him, so I
Right.
can only imagine what she was thinking. I felt really bad for her.
Yeah.
But I think
felt for her after really not liking her,
yeah.
because I was like, oh my God, like this person is annoying. Now, on the subject of annoying, let's go to
No, I think on the subject of deception, we should just do all the deceptive men.
The
in one.
deceptives?
Yeah, the deceptives. Let's do the deceptives. Let's do Tyler and Ashley.
Okay, so Tyler and Ashley, we kind of saw them as this like, they seem to be this perfect couple. They seem to be both connecting on the subject of religion and
Yes, family,
God-fearing,
Christmas.
all this Christmas carol bullshit.
Yes,
And we have a great meeting with him and her father. It's
that
like
seems
a
great.
special meeting. And then we find out that he has 3 kids via sperm donor.
Right. So he says apparently there's some social media out there that there's more to that, but the story. But for now, all we really know,
Based
for
in the world
sure,
of the show.
yeah, the world of the show, is that he didn't tell her that he has these 3 sperm donor children.
Right. And to me, like, you're a sperm donor, that's not something I would do. But if that's what you do, okay.
Sure. But it's
I
not
think-
about that. To me, and she says it's not about the fact. She's like,
Right.
if you're giving a couple a chance to have a kid, that's great. That's not my issue. My issue is that we've been talking about starting a family and having kids for weeks, and you never mentioned this.
Right,
Which I
and-
agree is the weird part.
And also, the weird part is you have a very specific sperm donorship. This isn't you going to the sperm bank and being like, I can get
And I
some
forgot
money.
about it. Right.
This is, I have a relationship with these people. I'm a part of the kid's life. They know me. There's more here
Mhm.
that if you're going to get married to me, you have to know how this works.
Right.
And her like, the problem that she has, and I think like all these people have, is like, we had this super, like, and I think the pods do this. And like, it's like the power of the pods,
Mhm.
where it's like all you do is talk. You're zoned in on info.
Yeah.
So you're like, I have everything I need. All I need is this one thing, the looks.
Yeah.
And once the looks fall into place, wow, I know more about them than I could ever know about anyone in my life. This is a weird way to meet someone, but I gotta say, like, I think
Right,
a lot
that's
of
the
these
pitch.
people,
Yeah.
I think a lot of these people have internet dated and they've found things out along the way, and they're like, well, now that I'm doing it this weird way, but I do think we get more.
I think it could work. Yeah.
Right. We like anyone could talk shit about meeting on a reality show, but we talk to each other more for those 3 weeks than I've talked to anyone in my life.
Right.
And then to have that be omitted is a lie.
Yeah.
And like, now you've been sold on a different thing.
Totally. And I think the way that she brought it up and the way she confronted it was like very mature. She sounded like it's exactly the healthiest way I think that you
Mhm.
could bring. She's like, this isn't just like a hug and we'll like be on our way thing. Like, here's why this was so upsetting that
Right.
we went through this whole thing. You never mentioned it. I feel like I don't necessarily trust you. Like, that was the thing where I wanted to like scream at the TV, because I'm like, why do men do this? Why can they not just like have a discussion with you? Like, why
Right.
is there's just no capability of expressing yourself, you just say all the right things that you're supposed to say, but when it comes to like real introspection, real discussion, why are you silent?
Right. I guess it's this idea, like if I'm to speak for that, it's like, I guess I can start over and do this again with someone new. Is that the
I guess,
feeling?
but it lacks any depth because the way you get stronger as a couple is by like really having hard conversations in a vulnerable, real way. I wanted him to just say why he didn't tell her. If I were her,
Right.
that'd be my question. Why? I just don't understand why you didn't tell me.
Right.
Maybe, and if he like came at it with some vulnerability, like I wanted to tell you the whole, like the easiest thing you could lie. I'm making this up right now. If he said, I really liked you. I wanted to have this. It seemed like it was really important to you to have this family. I worried that like if I told you this, you wouldn't like me anymore. You wouldn't want me if I had other kids. And it was really fear. It was selfish, and I was like scared. Like all that shit, even if it's bullshit. To me, would have been like I had this fight on his. I was like, I'll do this with you,
right?
Like, why couldn't he say any of that?
It's where we leave, and it's where we leave off the show.
Yeah.
So we don't have the full interaction yet, but yeah, I think in his head he's doing a mathematical equation of like, okay, well, this is the mountain I have to climb with this person. Do I want to climb it? Like,
and that's why he won't.
That's the same for Steven.
He won't like be vulnerable.
Well, because you go, okay, do I really want to fight the rest of my life that I left this out? And I think that's kind
Instead
of
they're running.
Instead they're running. Steven, do I really want to like fight that this person who saw me once this way now sees me this way? Do I want to like take up that battle?
But to me, the idea that you could find someone where you'd never have that kind of fight is crazy.
Right.
So to me, it's to say I don't want to do this with you is I don't want to do this with anyone.
Right. Well, yeah.
I only want to have a surface level fight.
Right. They're finding out what a real relationship is.
Right.
I think this is like them seeing that.
Totally. And which brings me to our next couple.
Okay.
Which I think it's interesting, again, the way people turn around. We're looking at Tim and Alex. So Tim I started off hating.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, I'm like, Tim is the best guy.
He's trying. Well,
you think
can
back
see
to last episode,
right? He's like,
right?
I'm not gonna like. Tim's whole thing was like, I get set in my ways, and I'm gonna like battle that way. And then like you could see like
he actually didn't do that. He worked through it.
He worked through it. He's like, I have to receive information different. And I have to give, and then she brings him to her family, and like you can kind of see where she gets her closed off is from her dad. Like her dad who has MS and, she like, it seems as though she's lied to her family. Like she's like, we need to do it in this order.
Mm-hmm.
A fib, not a lie. I would say like, she was like, I know how they are and we need to do things in a certain order to play by my family's rules, which I respect. I understand.
Right.
But then she goes to her dad to be like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. And he's like an asshole. Like he's totally like not like he's there. He's at the apartment.
Well, she's guarded, I think, because he's guarded.
Right. And it's like, and she's kind of put up this front from the beginning.
Sure, but she's also like, it's interesting, like the fight where where Tim is mad at Alex in the last episode. She's not like saying nothing. He's not like, I don't like being spoken like, and she's just sitting there, sorry.
Right.
She's working. It just goes to show the difference between men and women in those situations. She's sitting there working through it, and they did come out on the other side, I think, stronger because you see them. They seem much stronger in this episode.
Totally, because then when he gets through to the dad and the dad sees him and meets him, it kind of goes away.
Oh my God, I was like crying when he read when
letter.
he read the letter to the dad, and the dad is like has MS, and like that was like, to me, I actually was like brought to tears by that whole thing, even though I don't necessarily feel like they're that strong of a couple, but I just like, it just felt, I was so moved by it.
Well, it's also to see Tim against the backdrop of the two other guys who were like, aren't really, like, to read that letter to your future father.
Yeah.
To the strength to do that, like it's like admirable. Like
right, publicly,
right,
yeah.
And like to a guy who's not really giving you much.
Right.
He's not really like on board, and you like break him a little bit.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it's like
a little bit. Like,
well, it's like
he was also crying.
It would be very much like I kept thinking of like past seasons of Love Is Blind.
Yeah.
Where people don't get married at the end, and I'm like, how is this guy ever going to not get married to her?
Right. He cannot pull out.
He just read the letter. It's over. Right.
Right.
Like so. I was like, wow, that's really, he's pushed all his chips to the middle.
Yeah, I'm
So-
like very
which I
much-
respected.
Totally. And that's what I'm saying. He changed, like, to me last episode, I was like, he's not fighting the right way. He's not doing anything right. I don't feel like they're connections. This episode, I'm like, he's the best. Like, they're the best couple.
Right. On the subject of parents, let's go to Ramses and Marissa.
Talk about a scary parent.
Well, I was like, so we start the episodes with Ramses and Marissa, and Marissa talking about how she was in
The military.
the military.
This was the fight of the season. to
It
me.
was kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like, and
Who did you think was right?
I thought she was right.
I thought she was right. Also.
I was like, you're with her. Like the fact that
you
she
knew that the whole time, didn't you? Isn't she the one who said she dated a Trump supporter for like 3 years or something?
I think so. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And
It's like, why are you pretending like this is news to you?
right, this is a person who obviously has the capacity to change their mind. Like I listen, I respect that Marissa, like, you know, says I thought this way, now I think this way. I dated this person who thinks differently than
She's
me.
trying to work with him.
Right. And
too.
he seems to be like, you need to like just agree with however I think now.
Right. Which is funny because I feel like there's like a liberal notion of like being open minded,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not open minded at all. Like he's very much shutting down any opinion that is not his.
Right. And he does a kind of like, he does a good job of like tiptoeing around it. Like
Yes.
well, you know, they can learn about the military, but like, and we'll be okay with the kids knowing about her past. And it's
right.
like,
But if you ever go back to the military, I'm gone.
right. And so it's like, but also, this was her career. Like, what if she
The
got
whole right. She spent years and years and years doing this.
And this is a big part of the DC episodes is how much the armed services is such a help for people.
right.
Like what it helps you do and like and like what it gets you. Like and I went and did shows in I've done shows for the troops, and I had my perception of the armed services before I went and did shows for the troops totally changed. The idea that like you're joining, you know, the army because you have no other choice was kind of a thought in my head. Like, why would someone join the army?
right.
And then after you go, oh my God, look at the opportunity it affords. Look at the way you can go to college, the way you can learn, the way you can like learn how to like, you know, just it seemed like
Right.
there was so much more that I never saw as like
Mhm.
idiot, dumb, biased me.
Not
And
growing up around anyone who's.
I've
probably
never, yeah,
voted
right. I
either.
don't know
Yeah.
anyone who's
Right.
been in the armed services. So when I went and did shows for the troops, it totally changed my whole perspective of what that is for
Right.
someone. And you see that on this show. Look at the guy, you know, that read the letter. He was in the Navy.
Mhm.
You know, he says that the best thing I ever did was join. The second best thing I ever did was leave.
Right.
He said
There's
that line
kind of
twice.
like a lot of nuance about the whole thing that
Totally.
everyone who's in it has.
Joining-
kind of like anything else that if you're a normal person, you're not completely everything can be critiqued.
Right. And
Right.
and like the idea that like this woman joined the armed services and like was just blowing people up. And that's
Right.
all she was, just like bloodthirsty. Like that's kind of how he kind of looks at like the armed services.
Right. And he has no sense of like why. I'm trying to understand why she would do this. He is judging her. She says I feel
Yeah.
very judged. And he is, I don't blame her because he's just sitting there judging her and thinking that his opinion is the only right opinion.
Right. And it's it's very possible that she goes to law school, becomes a lawyer, and then works for, you know, the government.
Right.
How's he going to feel then being a lawyer? Like that is like a nuanced version of being in the armed services. You could be a military lawyer.
Right.
So like that's an option of many options. So yeah, his perspective to me was like,
So rigid. I mean, and we'll get to it because like I want to talk about him meeting her mom.
I couldn't stand her mom. I just, it is, and I understand, listen, she's probably been through a lot.
Yeah.
She very much the woman scorned. Like this is someone who's been through it, but like
She was such a downer. Ugh.
everything he
She
said,
was so mean to him too.
mean. She comes out, I don't like your look.
Right.
Like
That's crazy.
it's crazy. Everything he would say, she had a negative response.
right.
Everything. And like, to me, it's like a lack of respect for your daughter who's like trying to introduce you to someone. You're at this nice brunch
Right.
and maybe you don't agree with like how they got together or how this is going or what the way your daughter met this guy. But like,
She's
You're
trying to, like-
there.
right. She's there trying to prove that she's like the alpha in the situation. It's like, to who? Like,
The
you
way
just
she's
come off like a mean bitch.
the language she used, just
right.
she's swearing.
You're gonna tell me about marriage when he was like not at all trying to do that.
No, not at all. Like, and it was like,
I don't know how she thought she would come off, but it was not good.
she's the type of person who says to people, you could tell that says to people, "I'm tough to handle," and that's her like blanket coverage for being a total asshole to people.
Right.
Like that somehow apologizes for being just not a good, like not a
Yeah.
pleasant person to speak with.
I felt bad for Marissa
I did too.
after that whole meal, and it's funny because we were like, on the last episode, you're kind of like, she's almost like too positive, like fucking relax.
Mhm.
But you're almost like, this is what she needed to get through this childhood with
Right.
this like monster, negative, angry person.
How is she this positive?
I'm
right.
like, you kind of had like she almost needed to do that
Yeah.
to like not become a depressed, like, you know what I mean, like succeed to get out of there.
Right. And then she brings up the prenup when she's still in college, and it's like
Law school, I think. Yeah.
law
Yeah.
school, but I understand that, but like you're trying to send the message of like you're not gonna like steal her money, and then he's like, well, I'm not here for her money, and then the
Right,
mom's
she doesn't
like,
have- she's like,
she doesn't have any money, and you're like, then what the fuck are you talking
Right.
about?
What are you
then?
trying to do? Like, and also clearly not even to protect her. She clearly doesn't really give a shit about her. That's the other part that's like kind of.
It was kind of
shows
like
through.
it felt very much about the mom's ego.
Yes, the mom seems like a total narcissist. It was all about her. It was
Yeah.
all about I don't actually believe in love, so like, or forever, so I don't really care. It's like no one's asking you
Right.
about that.
We're not here for your TED talk.
Right.
And-
She was the worst.
And then we get to this other part about them having sex and how she wants to go off the pill
Mhm.
and use condoms. And
We got another condom guy.
this is something that comes up on this show
Yeah.
a lot. What did you think?
Where he was like, he's like, pleasure is number one to me. I'm not using condoms. That's the whole, again, it was like the last few episodes, I thought she was an issue. Now I'm like, no, he's the total issue. Like,
Right.
just the way that he was like, he just seems so non-compromising. He's like, I don't want kids and I don't want to use condoms. It's like, okay, well then I guess why don't you just tell me what to do? We'll just do whatever you want to do.
Well, he's
That's
like,
how relationships work, right? You say I'm not going to be in the army. You say I'm not going to be. We're not using condoms, and you say we're not having kids. So why don't you tell me the right way for our relationship to work?
right. He's almost like this kind of liberal, like the most hateable liberal,
Right.
where he's like an alpha victim.
That's what I'm saying. He's not open-minded at all.
Right. He has chosen the opinion that makes him believe he's the better person than other people, and then uses that to get what he wants.
Right.
So it's like, pleasure is important to me. You don't think pleasure is important? So I can't use a condom. I'm taking away the right for you to like have ownership over your own body
Right.
and what you put in your body. So it's like, this is all hypocrisy. This is the reason people, get annoyed with that side of the aisle. Like he
I
is
was
kind of
getting-
the picture of that.
I was getting very annoyed. I think he like stinks.
No, he stinks. And here's the other thing I can't believe about Ramses. And I didn't mention this on the last episode that we did on the last recap. You really have to think highly of yourself to never mention the Jack Sparrow braids coming out of your hair.
That's true.
You really have to believe.
The mom called it out immediately.
The mom immediately, which I
wasn't
don't,
nice either.
I don't agree with
Yeah.
how that happened. I do think it's wild that he not once mentions or see on camera him saying, "Did you think I'd have a single braid? Like, did you think I'd have coming out of the right side of my head? Like, did
Yeah.
you like?" So you have to really believe your shit doesn't stink to never be like, here I am. This is me. Take it or
Right.
leave it.
He's
Is
actually-
very much a Ramses position.
Totally.
Seemingly.
He's got a huge ego, even though, again, I think he pretends to be this, like, humble, like...
Thoughtful
guy.
side of right. But that is the thing that's like maddening to people, me being one of them, that like, listen, we on this podcast, we've said a lot of things that someone could disagree with. We open ourselves up
Sure.
to that. When you kind of live in this world of like, I only go to the most moral high ground so that I never show
Yes.
vulnerability, because you'll never be able to take me down because I am
You can't
a
argue
good
this.
person. Right.
Yes. And the annoying thing is, especially about him, is that he knew she was in the army,
Right.
like, for this whole time.
You signed up for this.
Yes, she's been extremely open about that. She talked about dating a Trump supporter. So to me,
Right.
if you're talking about dating a Trump supporter and you're still into her. Fine. That's not your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't propose.
Right. You were never turned off by this, so it obviously doesn't matter that much to you as much as you say it does.
Right. You just want to,
So-
like, appear like you're morally superior.
Right. So we move on to
Nick and Hannah, who
Nick-
seem like two, like, Dumb and Dumber.
Nick. I don't know what the lighting is in the pods, but Nick in the pods was like this, like, good-looking stud. Every moment he's on camera, he gets
Yes.
like just
Everything
like
he
childish,
says.
more and more childish, and not good-looking. And
Oh my God. The
but
thing about stocks. I
the
was,
stocks,
like,
but
dying.
also Hannah's an asshole. Like, she is not nice to him.
No, she's not nice to him.
It is, and it's like Hannah is like, she's 26. She claims to know everything about life because she's been working since she's 18. You know, I don't know what job at Hot Topic she had at 18 that made her this, like, working woman. Like, she acts like she was like the sister on Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Like, she went to an office at 18.
Right.
Like, I understand that she's, like, proud of herself for being on her own, but the way she talks
It's very
to Nick,
condescending. Right.
she's so
She also hates
condescending.
him. But I understand why she hates him, but she hates him.
Well, she believes and thinks she's above him. She
Right.
thinks she's better than him. He does the tour of, he's
parents.
literally living in his parents' basement.
No, the worst part about him living in the parents' basement was not that he's living in the parents' basement. It's the way he described it. He's like, of course I live in my parents' basement. It's amazing here.
Right.
Like, I love my parents. Like, what, you have a problem with that? You're the problem.
Right.
Not being like, oh, again, I always say it's about the way you package something.
Sure.
He's like, would stay here forever. Like, it's great. Love my parents. Like, and you don't, there's something wrong with you if you don't live in your parents' basement.
Right. He's living in a version of Americana that exists. Like, he's suburban America of the 90s. Like, he's almost from Mallrats. Like,
Right.
it's like, because it is recognizable. Like, you look at the house, it looks like it is in Virginia. It looks like he was big, he was probably, wearing the Letterman's jacket to homecoming
Yeah.
and had the prom experience, and you can see it, but he doesn't seem to realize, like, it's over.
Totally. And to me, it's like the way he was talking to all the women in the pods is like, he's like, it's just so funny that the guy who's like trying to be the biggest smooth talker is living in his parents' basement.
It is crazy. The parents are cool with it. The parents, seemingly, they're like, it is like Will Ferrell in Wedding Crashers.
Yes.
Like, she's like, do you want lasagna? Like, it is very, like, and listen, I actually don't judge it that much because, like, I know how this happens.
I mean,
like,
I don't judge it either. I just wish he would have a more realistic take on it of like,
well,
have a
he's
little
lying.
shame. Have a little shame.
He has no shame, and he's also lying. She's like, how many times? And she's also knows
Oh,
he's
yeah.
lying. How many times a week do you vacuum? He's like, once a week. It's like,
yeah,
this guy
I
hasn't touched a
never
vacuum.
vacuumed ever. Like, that was such a lie.
No
I mean, she
way.
was embarrassing him. I get it. Why would I invest in stocks? I want more money.
Right. And then she, like, it's like the blind leading the blind. Like, she's like,
Here's how
I
it's
get
done.
low risk
gonna-
because I can't lose that much money. That's not how it works.
These people
You have time on your side. When you're young and 26, you should be more risky. When you're older and you're about to
need
cash out, you should be less. Like I'm saying that as someone who sold life insurance and annuities. Like, I know this is just your. Like, I
Right.
was listening to her explain
These
to him, and I'm
people-
like, she's wrong and stupid.
They interact like two siblings who hate each other.
Right.
Like, when it was them two and her brother, I was like, you all three seem like you're in all each other's annoying younger brothers. All of you.
Right.
Like, there's zero chemistry there. I don't know why they're pretending.
Well-
When his mom asked her to help him with dinner, I would have been like, I'm out. I'm like, going to your house and you're making me cook?
I don't know. Well, how about when they go and visit her family, and the mom's like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you being this way?"
To her? Yeah.
To her,
Yeah.
she's like, "You're being like."
When this is the same mom who would lock the cabinets.
Is that what, well? And the mom was hot. I
She
will
was
say.
hot. She was hot. We'll give it. She was hot.
No lies were told there, but the whole, to me, it was childlike. This was two high school
Idiots.
boyfriend,
Posturing.
posturing as
Yeah.
adults. When it's like, dude,
I'm like, these people are not really getting married, right? Like, I would
No.
intervene. I'm kind of like, you guys don't even like each other.
well, his
There's
parents
zero
are like,
chemistry.
you can move in here.
Right.
Like, that's like crazy. His pictures on his business card. Okay, he's wearing, the Regis Philbin black shirt, black tie with a black suit. Like, it's like, dude, you got to grow up. Like, everyone needs to grow up here. Like,
Yeah.
and I will say to like leave the show a little bit, her social media is awful. Hannah's social media, this whole like clap back that she's kind of doing at the world, and
What's
how
she doing?
she's like lost a ton of weight. She looks good. It's like she's doing sassy karaoke. She's, doing, all the stuff that 26-year-olds do on
Insta
TikTok.
famous?
Right. And it's just like, I don't know how she's going to be taken from this, and then when they have the friend over for dinner and they're all having dinner and she like makes jokes about him.
That's what I'm saying. She doesn't like him. He doesn't really like her. I'm kind of like,
I don't know why he's staying.
Why
in
are
this.
we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, they both stink.
Right.
I don't like them at all.
And our golden couple, Garrett and Taylor, who really are the only ones that seem adult enough to like do all this.
Right. I think that's because Garrett seems like the most emotionally mature of all the men.
Right. Well, that's why he's the least entertaining.
Right.
Like, there's nothing going on here. He has his job. He's got his businesses. His biggest thing is, will he move to San Diego?
Right.
And it
he's
seems
got
like
a lot of pictures of fishing on his Instagram.
Right.
They're like beige flag couple things.
Right. Taylor and Garrett, to me, are your friends who got married at 27 and moved off to the suburbs. Like, and she's fun, and you kind of like deal with him because she's fun. Like, she's the personality. And even her friends. He's stable. Like, it is, to me, that's the most normal thing on the show, is them two.
They're like the Lauren Speed and I think his name was Cameron from season 1.
Okay.
Where they're just kind of like, they try to come up with like a little drama here and there, but it's just like smooth sailing.
Right. To me, it was just to like, I even the friends were like, look, you're holding his hand. It was like, woman who's not that fun with guy who's not that fun.
Right.
And friends that are happy for them.
That's why I don't have anything to say about them. That's more boring than a stable, happy couple.
Nothing worse.
Wish them the best.
So that's our review. We recapped everyone. If you have thoughts, concerns, questions, comment.
Write in the comments. Rate, review, and subscribe. We always appreciate it. And we'll be back with the wedding episodes next week.
Boom.
The U Up podcast is produced by Belle Roman and Candice Maniga. Edited by Belle Roman. Social media by Candice Maniga. Guest booking by Ali Friedlander. VP of podcast is Chris Allen. And be sure to follow U Up at u.up.podcast.